I think these four can be asked in exam. The first one is going to be the Solow model. The second one is going to be the Harrod-Domer model. The third one is going to be the Lewis model. And fourth one is going to be Harris-Todaro model. I think that these four models should be sufficient for your preparation of South Asian University entrance exam. If time permits, you can scroll through other development models also, but from your portal, revising these four development models should be enough. They should be sufficient. Okay. Let me give you some of the sample kind of questions that can be asked from these development models. So look here. Something like this can be asked. Please read out the question. It says estimation of recent data for many countries show that countries with higher savings rate have higher level of output per person, right? So this is saying that those countries which have higher saving, right, they have higher output, right? And now this is asking you, why do you think that will be true? So read the first option. High saving rate means permanently high growth rate of output. So this is telling me that if savings rate is high, output will be high. High saving rate leads to high level of capital per worker. This is saying if savings is high, capital will be high. Then this says countries with high level of output per worker can afford to save a lot. So when you have high output, savings will be high, right? And this says countries with large amount of natural resources will have output also and more of saving also. So questions like this, which may seem कि इनका तो कोई development model से relation ही नहीं है. They are nowhere related to development model. Such kind of questions can be asked in exam. But if you thoroughly see, then this is actually very much related to the Solow model also, right? Because if you remember, then we had gone ahead and we had seen a model like this. If I have this as my output, right? And if I have this as my savings, and if I have this as delta plus n, then we had seen that this will be the level of capital. And correspondingly, this will be the steady state level of the output. And if my savings rate would increase, the amount of capital in the economy will increase and the amount of output in the economy will also increase. So more the savings, right, can go ahead and lead to more output in the economy. And this is something that has been shown through the data over the years, right? So such twisted questions can also be asked in exam, which are based out of Solow model or which are an application of one of the model, and you just need to recall whatever models you have studied, right? So this would be the first kind of question. Let's take some more example. So suppose I ask you, in Solow model, the demand for goods is equals investment. So we know that Y is equal to C plus I, right? Income can either be consumed or saved. And this is just asking a simple question on that, whenever I talk about the demand, then it will be investment plus. So it will be investment plus consumption. So the correct answer would be C, right? Look into another question. It says, in economy with no population growth and technological change, steady state consumption is at its greatest possible value. So if it asks you steady state consumption at its greatest possible value, so isn't it asking you about golden rule, where consumption is maximum? And don't we know that happens where MPK is equal to depreciation rate? So answer will be C. So such kind of question which are not numerical in nature, they are theoretical in nature, but they can change the wording a bit. जैसे यहाँ पर directly they are not asking you, okay, what is golden rule of capital? What is golden rule of consumption? What is golden rule of saving? They're not saying that. They are going ahead and saying that, that consumption where it is maximum, what is the condition for that? Indirectly, we know what they're asking. Such kind of questions can also be asked in exam. So it is my thorough instruction to you, it is my request to you that you read the Solow model thoroughly in this case. You should know everything about the Solow model, that what is the equation for steady state, what is golden rule, right? How do you go ahead and talk about the level effect versus the growth effect? No numerical required, but basic understanding of these topics would be required, and you should be aware about that. Okay, now let's talk about this kind of question better. So this is from Lewis model. Try to read this question out. It says, which of the following hold good for Lewis model of development? And I've given you some important aspects here. Unlimited supply of labor. Marginal productivity of labor in the subsistence sector is less than equal to subsistence wage. Dual economy with modern sector and subsistence sector. Agricultural sector subject to increasing return. And critical role or crucial role of surplus by capitalist. अब ये सारे के सारे points, it will seem very simple if you have made a short note on Lewis model covering all important aspects. This is a very easy question to be done. So let me show you how I would have gone ahead and prepared my short note on Lewis model. Take this example, beta. In just 1 to 2 paragraphs, I have tried to go ahead and summarize everything related to Lewis model. See, first point, the Lewis model, it focuses on transition of ट्रेडिशनल सेक्टर टू मॉडर्न सेक्टर. तो लुइस मॉडल ये बताता है कि कैसे हम ट्रेडिशनल से मॉडर्न सेक्टर की तरफ जा रहे हैं. द लुइस मॉडल हैज अनलिमिटेड सप्लाई ऑफ लेबर इन द सबसिस्टेंस सेक्टर. जो एग्रीकल्चरल सेक्टर है वहां पे अनलिमिटेड सप्लाई ऑफ लेबर अवेलेबल है. दिस कैन बी इजिली एब्सॉर्ब्ड इनटू द मॉडर्न सेक्टर. ये जो एग्रीकल्चर का सप्लाई है इसको हम मॉडर्न सेक्टर में एब्सॉर्ब करवा सकते हैं. Marginal product of labor in the subsistence sector is less than equal to the wage that they get. जो उनका रिटर्न है, जो लेबर आउटपुट प्रोड्यूस कर रहा है एग्रीकल्चरल सेक्टर में, it is not more than the wage that they're getting. So therefore it is not very profitable for the producers. And it is characterized by dual economy. Dual economy में दो economies आती हैं. One is the modern economy, one is the traditional economy. ट्रेडिशनल इकोनॉमी के रिटर्न्स डिमिनिशिंग है, मॉडर्न के इंक्रीजिंग है, एंड मॉडर्न इकोनॉमी इज जनरेटिंग कैपिटल सरप्लस. राइट? इट वाज डेवलप्ड इन 1950 and 1960s, and it simply talks about how you can transform from the subsistence sector to the modern sector. So in just this much, I haven't written a lot, but I think अगर मैं अपना नोट्स इस तरीके से प्रिपेयर कर लूं, if I write in just 2 paragraphs everything related to Lewis model, I am sorted for exam. I know nothing can be asked beyond this in exam. Now let us go to the options. देखो options को. Unlimited supply of labor, yes, this is very important property of Lewis model, तो एकदम ठीक है. Marginal productivity of labor is less than the wage. Yes, this is correct. Dual economy. Yes, this is a property of Lewis model. Agriculture sector, increasing return. No, agricultural sector has decreasing returns. Crucial role of surplus by capitalist. Yes, क्योंकि capitalist के पास surplus है, इसीलिए तो वो production बढ़ाते हैं, इसीलिए तो वो ट्रेडिशनल सेक्टर के लेबर को एब्सॉर्ब कर पाएंगे. सो दिस इज आल्सो करेक्ट. सो नाउ वी नो थॉरली व्हाट अ लुइस मॉडल इज अबाउट. इसके आगे भी कुछ नहीं जानना और पीछे भी कुछ नहीं जानना. दैट इज इट दैट वी वांट टू नो. राइट? सो द करेक्ट ऑप्शन शुड बी ए, बी, सी एंड ई. सो दैट मीन्स दैट माय करेक्ट आंसर इज दिस एंड आई एम डन. Right? So I want you to go ahead and prepare yourself in this way. एक क्वेश्चन से रिलेटेड whatever possible information I can gather, I should be writing all of that down, because After that, I don't have again time to go through the model and again revise every day. We don't have that much time. We only have 10 days in our hand. Okay. Now, look here, beta. Because we already know everything related to the Lewis model, अब ये question बहुत आसान लगेगा. So, dual economies are countries. तो कौन सी countries आ रही हैं dual economy में? क्या होता है उसमें? We have agricultural sector and modern sector. So, correct answer should be those which have both modern and agricultural sector, right? So, this should be B. That's it, right? Okay. Now, another important topic that can be asked in exam is about certain development theories. Next topic of importance can be some important development theories. Let me give you examples of these development theories. So try to understand it. You are applying for Masters in Economics with focus on development economics. Course का नाम ही है MA Economics with a focus on development economics. So you have to be very thorough with development economics. उसमें जो भी whatever I am mentioning today, those things you have to do very, very thoroughly. They are very important from exam point of view. So when I talk about development economics or development theories, one, you will understand what is vicious cycle of poverty. Important, right? Then you will go ahead and you will try to understand other theories, like for example, what is capability approach given by Amartya Sen. Sen's capability approach. So these two topics, vicious cycle of poverty and Sen's capability approach, they are also important from the point of view of exam, and you will go ahead and you will cover these two topics. Giving you an example, read this question. It says the vicious circle theory suggests that. तो क्या है vicious cycle of poverty? What does it say? It says, look, when income is lower, then people will save less. When people will save less, we know savings and investment are equal. There will be less investment in the economy. When investment will be less, firms will produce less output. When firms will produce less output, they will employ less number of people. When they will employ less number of people, then again, people will have lower income. Also, because income is lower, consumption will be lower. When consumption will be lower, output will be lower. When output will be lower, less people employed, less income. So it's a circle of poverty. Poverty leads to poverty, right? So low per capita income creates low saving that keeps the income again low. And that is the answer to this, right? So such theories, they are important and you should know something about it. Similarly, you should know the next thing that I want to focus on is all kind of index and all kind of parameters, right? First, you should know all ways in which poverty is calculated, right? Not in much detail. I'll tell you the reason why. Dekho, in this paper, we need to understand that we have students from different countries, right? So it is not going to be very India-based paper. मतलब उनको ये मतलब नहीं है कि what your poverty committee suggested. No. They just want to know whether you understand the basic concepts related to poverty, right? Whether you know what is multidimensional poverty index, right? Whether you know what is Gini's coefficient, whether you know what is Lorentz curve, whether you know what is human development index, right? You know what is Kuznets hypothesis or Kuznets curve, right? So you need to know about these parameters, right? But in particular, you don't have to go ahead and read about India in particular, unlike CUET. मतलब इसमें you don't have to go ahead and you don't have to really understand कि अच्छा इंडिया में किसने पॉवर्टी लॉन्च की, व्हाट डिड नारोजी सेड, व्हेन वाज द फर्स्ट पॉवर्टी और नेशनल इनकम कैलकुलेटेड. नो, नथिंग ऑफ इंडियन इकोनॉमी. वो उस एस्पेक्ट से नहीं पढ़ना है हमने. वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड द डेवलपमेंट इकोनॉमी कॉन्सेप्ट, राइट? बेटा देबराज रे इज अ गुड बुक फॉर डेवलपमेंट इको. यू कैन रेफर टू दैट बुक. So these are the concepts which you should be focusing on. Let me again give you some example MCQs. Read out the first one, beta. It says income inequality is often shown by. So we know what shows income inequality. It is the Lorentz curve that shows income inequality. Right? So you know the answer to this, right? Beta Debraj Ray is a good book for development eco, but I would just suggest to, you can just go through these topics in particular rather than, picking up the entire dev eco at this point. Okay. The next thing it says is a value of 1 in Gini's coefficient represents. So you need to understand that when the Gini coefficient value is higher, it represents more inequality. So therefore, answer to this question will be this, right? So this is my 45-degree line. This is representing full equality. And this is my 100% of the population having 100% of the income. This is my Lorentz curve. And Gini's coefficient will be area of A upon A plus B. So imagine this Lorentz curve tells me how much I deviate from equality line. मैं कितना equality line से दूर हूँ. So imagine if the Lorentz curve keeps going down and it becomes here. So this area will increase. A and B will coincide, isn't it? B will kind of become 0 and this area itself will become full. That will become 1. So you will be maximum away from the line of equality, right? And that is what we will have here. You will have maximum inequality, right? That can be a question in exam. Okay. Then they can go ahead and rare, but they can ask you something about the population theory also. So I just want you to focus on one population theory, which is the Malthusian theory. Again, this is available for students on portal. In case you have enrolled for the course, you can go ahead and look into the Malthusian theory and Kuznets hypothesis on the portal, right? So a question like this can be asked, who wrote the principle of population? And it was given by Malthus. Just read, एक बारी के लिए पढ़ लो कि माल्थुस का population theory है क्या. That can be also an important thing from exam point of view. Okay. Then, beta, as I told you, they can ask you on question on Sain's capability approach. Basic question on Sain's capability approach can also be asked. So for example, here it is simply saying Sain's welfare theory relies on. So we know it talks about the capability approach. That's it. That's the answer to this question. Okay, which section has more weightage? So I would say that all of them, if you look into the sample paper, you will realize that all of them have more or less equal weightage. You will see that there will be 2 to 3 questions based on SAARC nations that can be asked. There will be at least 7 to 8 questions that will be on your macro theory, macroeconomics. There will be 6 to 7 questions which will be on your dev eco, right? There will be 7 to 8 questions which will be on your micro eco. There will be 2 to 3 questions which will be on paragraph, right? So there can be questions related to paragraph also. I will be talking about that in a while. So it is not that एक ही सब्जेक्ट को फोकस दिया गया है. So they have gone ahead and they have mentioned these topics, and each of this is going to go ahead and have equal weightage, right? In fact, recently it has been seen that even questions from maths have been asked. I will be talking about which topics, but questions on maths have also been asked. तो आपको उस पे भी focus करना पड़ेगा. The only good part about SAU is that there is no negative marking. So it is my high suggestion that you go ahead and you attempt all questions. Don't skip any question. Give it your 100% because there is no negative marking in the paper. Okay. So coming back to this then. So something like this, beta, this is another sample question which can be asked. So this says, an economic development proceeds income inequality to follow. So we know that as a country develops, जैसे जैसे हम development के path पे जाते हैं, initially inequality increases and then inequality decreases, right? So it follows inverted U shape, right? So all these kind of simple question which are based on development theory, ऐसे questions exam में आ सकते हैं, and you have to be very, very well aware of these questions, right? Okay, so I am leaving it up to you. Please read this out. So you need to know what is the difference between physical quality life index versus human development index versus multi-dimensional index. इनके बारे में पढ़ना है और किसमें क्या क्या factors included हैं. Please go ahead and thoroughly read about those also. Okay, this is the second thing. Now let's talk about the third important topic which can be asked in exam. And that topic beta basically is going to be statistics. If you evaluate the sample paper, अगर आप sample paper को एक बारी evaluate करो and you look into the past year questions, you will realize कि slowly type 1, type 2 error has become one of the favorite topics of South Asian University. So you will go ahead and you will see questions on type 1, type 2 error also. It can be a basic question or a little intermediate level question. So for example, I can go ahead and I can ask you this, that consider a person who has a disease A, but the report says otherwise. Okay, or but the hypothesis testing says otherwise. Then which of the error we are committing? A simple question like this. Are we committing type 1 error, type 2 error? ऐसा कुछ question आ सकता है. Or it can be a little different. I can give you some statements and I can ask you which of the statement is correct. जिसमें मैं आपको बोल सकती हूँ that the level of significance and type 1 error mean the same thing, right? Or I can ask you that confidence level and type 2 error mean the same thing. ऐसे करके I give you 4 statements and I ask you which is true and which is false. Which of the following statement is correct out of 4? So again, type 1, type 2 error is a more oftenly asked topic and you need to go ahead and you need to prepare on that also. If you want to revise probability, तो जितना CUET में probability पढ़ा है बच्चे, that is more than enough. And you can revise class 12th probability concepts. You don't have to go beyond that. Okay? So you need to go ahead and know concepts like what is mutually exclusive, exhaustive, independent events. Then everyone will do numericals on Bayes theorem and conditional probability. So if I go ahead and I ask you, okay, what is probability A given B, and I give you some numbers here, so you should be able to go ahead and solve such questions also. Okay, so this is something which I want you to focus on. Okay, again, this is going to, so this will have 1 to 2 questions. This will have 2 to 3 questions on probability. Another thing which has recently been asked in exam is central limit theorem, right? So I will just focus on it. Central limit theorem, right? So I will give you a statement. So I will say that the central limit theorem suggests that, and maybe I give you 4 statements यहाँ पे, जिसमें से मैं एक लिख रही हूँ कि as the sample size increases, the distribution becomes normally distributed. Right? I give you 4 statements. So such questions can also be asked in exam based on central limit theorem. You need to revise statistics. It is an important aspect of the exam. छोड़ना नहीं है. Stats is important and rather very important. Okay. Now let me give you the important topics from maths. There will be question on limit continuity and differentiation for sure. They have been asked every year. So for example, I am telling you that definitely there will be a question asked asking L'Hopital application. On L'Hopital application. Huh? So just say if I go ahead and I ask you, okay, limit x tends to 0 and say I give you ln x by x. So we know that, something like this I give you, where you are not able to define the function, or I go ahead and I give you limit x tends to 0, sine x by x, right? So whenever I go ahead and whenever I give you questions where L'Hopital is involved, such question will definitely be there in your exam, right? So you need to go ahead and prepare that also. Yes, beta. So only till 2018 it is available. Scroll 3-4 papers of South Asian University and their sample paper, the latest sample paper that they have given. We have also, I've just added the link of SAU here in the chat window. That will give you an idea of the kind of questions that come in South Asian University. That should be enough, right? So just by looking at 3-4 papers, you will realize that what kind of pattern they follow, and you should be focusing on those topics, right? Okay. Now, the second thing that has been asked is eigenvalue and eigenvector and rank. And suppose I give you something like this. I give you a matrix 1, 2, 3, alpha 1, 2, say 0, 0, 3. ऐसा कुछ दे दिया. And I ask you find the value of alpha such that the rank of matrix is 2. I want the rank of the matrix to be 2. मतलब मेरे को 3 नहीं चाहिए. So when will the rank not be 3? If the determinant is equal to 0. So you need to find that value of alpha such that the determinant becomes 0, right? So such questions, basic questions on differentiation, limit, continuity, then questions from matrix, determinant, eigenvalue, eigenvector, and rank can be asked. Another thing, beta, here again, there is a repetition. So the kind of questions that come in exam are repeated questions, nothing very new. So you should be looking into the past year papers very well. Past years are important, right? Okay. Now let's talk about macroeconomics. In macroeconomics, very often they give you a question on augmented Phillips curve, right? Recently, it has been seen that if you look into the, if you ask last year's students ki, okay, what kind of paper came on their memory based questions, I'm telling you. So you will notice that there have been also questions which have been on expectations, right? Rational and adaptive expectation. So suppose I give you a question like this. Let me make a question. So say I say that which of the following statement is true for rational expectation. And I give you 4 statements and I tell you that there is no systematic error, right? There is always a systematic error. And I give you 2 more statements, right? So we know that whenever we talk about rational expectation, there is no systematic error, right? We know that whenever we will find the expected value of my inflation, it will come out to be the actual inflation. My error on an average will be 0 in rational expectation. We have studied that. So questions on the properties of rational and adaptive expectation, it can be asked in the exam and you need to focus on that also. Other than that, this is important. You should know some basic difference between classical and Keynes. What did Keynes talked about full employment? What was classical dichotomy? Right? You should be knowing those factors well. And what is the AS curve under classical versus Keynes theory? Itna janna, it's important. Phillips curve I have talked about. The augmented Phillips curve equation is important. So you should know that pi is equal to pi e minus alpha u minus ut. And you should know that when we talk about augmented Phillips curve, then there is a role of expectation. Inflation expectation ka role hota hai. And whenever expected inflation increases, the Phillips curve will shift. So what causes shifts of the Phillips curve? And what causes movement along the Phillips curve? Ye wale concept janna bhi important hai. So these are the important topics from macroeconomics. Okay. Now let's talk about microeconomics. So in microeconomics, not a lot has been asked. Matlab, unlike the earlier, unlike the other exams, jahan pe you see very, very difficult kind of utility functions, aisa kuch nahi hai. The microeconomics part is going to be pretty simple and you can expect simple questions, right? In microeconomics at the level of CUET. It will not be very, very beyond the CUET level. So for example, I may ask you something like this, right? I may ask you that when price of good X increases, demand of good Y decreases, then the relation between X and Y. And I will give you 4 options. They're complement, substitute, not related, and X is luxury. Something like this I will give you. So such questions can be asked in exam, right? Similarly, I may give you that, so A always prefers rupees 50 over lottery that gives, say, rupees 55. Then A is, then I will give you risk averse, risk lover, risk neutral, none of the above. So aise karke questions like this can be a part of your exam. So you have to go back to your basic and intermediate level video lectures and you have to revise those lectures well. That should be sufficient.